There is all kinds of things going on in Indiana, sports wise, right now. I mean, gee whiz, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a different sports story. Uh, we can talk about college basketball. We can talk about NIL. We can talk about the transfer portal. Who's got whom? The draft coming up. Who's coming back? The Indianapolis 500. What am I leaving? What am I missing out on? I mean, there's just who's offered, who's coming, who's going. It's just crazy. Caleb Love, and then there's Caleb Love. The Caleb Love saga continues. I haven't talked a lot about that yet today. Obviously, Indiana has a spot for a guard, but I have not been around Caleb Love, so I can't say the things that people are all saying. Oh, well, he's this. I'm like, well, I don't know that, so I can't say that. I've heard that, but that don't mean jack. But he's starting to not being able to get into Michigan. That's not a good look. That's not a good look for North Carolina, first of all.
Well, it's all this is, if you'll recall, this is the second straight year this has happened to Michigan. Remember last year, Terrence Shannon from Texas Tech committed to Michigan, and Michigan said no thanks, can't do that. The admissions department wouldn't let him in because it was again the credits wouldn't transfer, and so he ended up at Illinois and was very, very good at Illinois. I expect that Caleb Love will probably end up at some school and be very, very good, just like Terrence Shannon was, because Michigan has been a little bit basically high on the hog here for a very long time in terms of, well, we're Michigan and we do things a certain way and this and that. But you're right. It is. That was one of my first thoughts too, was that it is a pretty poor look for North Carolina, which considers itself the same kind of state school, but a very good academic institution, that its credits will not transfer to Michigan. Although, again, we don't know what Michigan's criteria are for credits transferring. And it seems like they are pretty onerous.
I think they have a problem with phantom classes.
Yeah. Oh. Which is funny because, I guess my first question was, is North Carolina still doing that kind of thing? I thought they cleaned that up a couple of years ago.
Funny. I guess they found those two secretaries that left their jobs and the NCAA couldn't find to talk to when that happened. For those of you that don't remember, when North Carolina got caught offering these phantom classes for athletes, the employees at North Carolina who the NCAA wanted to talk to about it suddenly were no longer working at North Carolina and could not be
didn't leave a forwarding
to talk to.
Didn't leave a forwarding address, no phone
Imagine
number.
That. Damn it. Daggone it. I hate when that happens. Does Caleb Love end up in the Big Ten or at maybe U of L, someplace like that?
What I had seen, at least one reporter had said the teams to watch out for are IU and Missouri, because he is a Missouri native, and he was originally, Missouri was kind of the one that he had chosen. It was Michigan and Missouri were his final two the last time. So that would be one option for him. IU is obviously another one, and I assume that they are a significantly more attractive option than they were when he committed to Michigan, since they've gotten both Kalel Ware and Mackenzie Mbako since then. And it's very clear that a guard is the one piece they're missing. So I would assume they're a much more attractive option than they were in the past. So we'll see. I know that there are people out there, and this is my opinion, and you can take it for what it's worth, but I know there are people who think that, oh, we don't need Caleb Love. He's inefficient. He needs the ball in his hands. He's this and that. My view on it is that he is a good enough player that you get him in the building and figure it out from there. Because Mike Woodson has shown an ability to develop guards. He's shown an ability to make guards who were inefficient more efficient. He did that with Xavier Johnson very, very well 2 years ago. And my guess is that he would be able to take someone who is as talented as Caleb Love and mold him into someone who really fits into what Mike Woodson wants to do. I think I think he's the type of talent that you get him in the building and you figure it out later. I think Mike Woodson has earned some benefit of the doubt in terms of being able to do that.
How much eligibility does Love have left? Is he,
2 years. 2 years.
Okay. Man.
It's unclear if he'd want to use both of them because he still has NBA dreams, and I think that I don't know what his NBA ceiling is or whether he would consider staying for 2 years. I think it's more than likely he's kind of a 1-year rental, and then he improves his stock and he goes. But he does have 2 years left.
What would Caleb Love bring to the current Indiana team that we know that they have that is completed -1? And this would be a piece. I mean, let's take the stuff that's been talked about out for a moment and just talk about the athlete. This is, I mean, does this complete the puzzle? Would that complete the puzzle?
It would certainly give you all the pieces, and then I think Mike Woodson would have to complete the puzzle this offseason, and quite frankly, through the early part of next year. I think this would, if Caleb Love is the guy that Indiana goes with, I think that it would be something where that team would take a little bit to gel. That's a lot of new pieces and a lot of new faces that are really, really talented and are going to have to figure out how to play with each other. I think the type of team that by the Big Ten season could really, really be something special. Caleb Love is the type of guy, this is the type of guy that Indiana doesn't have a ton of right now. Xavier Johnson is one guy. I don't really know if they have another guy who is a backcourt player who can get his own shot off the dribble. And you can never have enough of those guys. Now, is he super efficient? No. He shot 38% from the field last year, 30% from three. That's not particularly good, right? He shoots way more threes than he probably should. He took 7.5 threes a game last year and made 30% of them. That is not what you want. But if he's playing in an offense, he was trying to do a lot of hero ball last year because Armando Bacot was hurt for so much of the year. North Carolina struggled for so much of the year. I think he felt like it was all on his shoulders. And so with Indiana, this year, I don't think that would be the case. I think there's enough talent elsewhere on the roster, especially with Xavier Johnson, to really dominate the ball. I think he'd be able to play off the ball and really be a guy who you could give the ball to late in the shot clock and say, hey, we don't have anything going right now. Go get us a bucket. Get to the rim, get downhill, get fouled. And I think that is a piece that Indiana is really missing right now outside of Xavier Johnson. You can't have too many of those guys, right? And so I think that would be a huge get for Indiana, even despite some of the statistical inefficiency that he had last year.
Yeah, Missouri already with Tamar Bates, former Hoosier, and they have been adding some players and trying to make a run in the ever rising SEC college basketball world. Trying to stay afloat in that conference has been tough, but they've been adding guys. But Indiana is looking not to add guys. They want to complete this puzzle. And man, to get a high-level player like that, if you could get him to play within the confines of what you need him to do, he's already shown to be a very good basketball player.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is that we're not looking just at last season when he wasn't as good as people expected it. I mean, 2 years ago, he was one of the best players in the country, right? He shot 36% from three, so we know he has that ability. And then in the NCAA tournament, he was maybe the best player in that tournament. I know Kansas ended up winning, but he was maybe the best player in that NCAA tournament 2 years ago. He averaged something like 19 points a game in the tournament. He had 28 on 55% shooting in the Final Four against Duke, 30 against UCLA in the second round. I mean, he was fantastic. He's a guy who has stepped up in the biggest games when the lights are brightest, and you can never have too many guys that do that. I think, like I said, I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't want him. He's inefficient, this and that." You get him in the building and you figure it out because he's that kind of talent. That's my opinion. I am sticking to it.
And I mean, Missouri, Kansas, I mean, he's going to end up someplace without question because he has
going to have other offers.
And he's going to play somewhere. He's either going to be playing for you or against you in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if he ended up at Missouri. I think IU should will absolutely be in contact. Will absolutely make a run at him. But obviously, Juwan Howard saw something in him. I like Juwan Howard is the same type of guy who wants to run a very similar offense to what Mike Woodson wants to do. And Juwan Howard was like, yeah, bring him in here. Now I think Mike Woodson is a better coach than Juwan Howard and would do a better job with him. But it's the same kind of philosophy, I think, generally on what they want to do with the ball. And so I think that it's pretty obvious that it makes sense for Indiana if it made sense for Michigan.
And Indiana is a much better landing spot right now.
Michigan. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, Indiana's ready. It's what I call plug and play. Man, they're ready to go. And you bring in a player like that, that just adds to what they already have. And I'm already thinking of Indiana as now a team that I've got Michigan State at the top of the Big Ten right now, and then Indiana and Purdue have to wait to let things play on out further, but those are my top 3 teams at the moment. Michigan State is by themselves at the top, but Indiana could join them with this addition, and they may be as good without them. It doesn't necessarily matter, but we'll see. But that would be, to me, if Indiana adds that piece, they may not quite join Michigan State just yet, but they would be a clear number 2 by themselves to me.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I've seen, and then if you don't get Caleb Love, I think that they still have a couple backup plans in terms of they're still in contact with Ray J. Dennis, the kid from Toledo, one of the best players in the MAC last year, who is he seems like he's like Illinois really wants him. He's an Illinois native, so that he's also visited Michigan as well. So that's a guy that Indiana has kicked the tires on. And then there was a guy who entered the portal yesterday, who one of your listeners here mentioned a couple minutes ago, Zion Pullen from UC Riverside, who entered the portal yesterday, one of the best players on the West Coast last year. 18 points a game last year, 39% 3-point shooting, just a really, really efficient player. Also a guy who can create his own shot off the dribble. That's a guy that looking to climb a level. I think the consensus based on what I've seen is that he is a high major talent. And so that's a guy I'm sure that Indiana has been in contact with as well. It's one of those things where if you don't get Caleb Love, you go get someone who from the lower level who has been extremely efficient and has done it as the guy for his team. I think that would work as well. But I think Caleb Love is the priority right now. And I do think that I said this a couple weeks ago, that Indiana had a Mackenzie Mbako-sized hole on the roster, and it'd be great to get him. I think right now Indiana has a Caleb Love-sized hole on the roster, and it would be great to fill out the roster with Caleb Love.